Welcome back to Mastering Public Health. This is the final part of Chapter 5. Part 1 covered counting disease. Part 2 covered randomized controlled trials. Part 3 covers what you do when you can't run a trial. The cohort study, the case control study, relative risk, the odds ratio, and the studies that prove smoking causes lung cancer, aspirin caused Reye syndrome, and Zika caused microcephaly. 3 reasons not to skim. 1. The vast majority of published epidemiologic findings come from cohort or case control studies, not randomized trials. 2. The math from these designs, relative risk and odds ratio, is what you'll see in every research paper. 3. The difference between relative risk and odds ratio is the single most missed concept on the boards. We'll cover both and when one is appropriate versus the other. The cohort study. Start with a large group of people, all healthy at enrollment. Question them about their exposures, smokers versus non-smokers, high-fat diet versus low-fat, whatever the hypothesis is. Then follow them forward in time, sometimes for decades. At the end, compare disease incidence in the exposed group to the unexposed group. If the exposed group develops more disease, you have evidence of an association. The cohort study is the next best thing to a randomized trial when you can't randomize the exposure. 4 cohort studies you should be able to recite. Framingham started 1948, identified blood pressure, cholesterol, and smoking as cardiovascular risk factors. Doll and Hill's British Doctor Study 1951 established smoking as the cause of lung cancer. Hammond and Horn 1952 replicated it in 188,000 American men. The Nurses' Health Study 1976 started with 120,000 nurses and is still running. Each one shaped a different domain of public health. Some of the things the Nurses' Health Study has actually shown. While taking oral contraceptives, nurses had a 50% higher breast cancer risk, but the risk fell back to baseline after stopping. Regular alcohol consumption raised breast cancer risk by 10 to 40% depending on intake. And in a 2017 BMJ analysis, gluten-free diets showed no protection against coronary heart disease in people without celiac disease. That last one is a great example of an expensive cohort study reaching a useful negative finding. The output of a cohort study is relative risk. RR equals the incidence rate in the exposed group divided by the incidence rate in the unexposed group. A relative risk of 1.0 means no association. Above 1.0 means the exposure raises risk. Below 1.0 means it lowers risk. The further the value is from 1.0, the stronger the association. In the Doll-Hill British Doctors Study, the relative risk of lung cancer in heavy smokers compared to non-smokers was 23.7. Heavy smokers were almost 24 times more likely to die of lung cancer. The classic illustration. From the 1956 follow-up paper, lung cancer death rates per 100,000 persons were 166 for heavy smokers, 7 for non-smokers. Divide one by the other. 23.7. That's the relative risk. Heavy smokers were 23.7 times more likely to die of lung cancer than non-smokers. This calculation is one of the most reliably tested items on epidemiology exams. The structure works for any cohort study, a range of relative risks from real studies. 23.7 for smoking and lung cancer is one of the largest in epidemiology. 1.5 for current oral contraceptive use and breast cancer is real but modest. 0.56 for aspirin and heart attack from the Physician's Health Study is a meaningful protective effect. The size of the relative risk drives clinical and policy decisions. A 50% relative reduction is worth running an aspirin program. A 50% increase is what justified the Surgeon General's warning on cigarettes. Direction tells you the type of effect, magnitude tells you whether to act. The case control study runs the cohort study backward. Start with people who already have the disease. Those are the cases. Match each one to one or two healthy controls of similar age, sex, and other relevant characteristics. Then ask both groups about their past exposures. If the cases have more of the suspected exposure than the controls, you have an association. Case control studies are dramatically faster and cheaper than cohort studies, especially for rare diseases. They're the workhorse of outbreak investigation. A textbook case control study. Reye syndrome was a deadly illness affecting children a few weeks after a viral infection like chickenpox or flu. Researchers suspected the syndrome was triggered by a medication. They compared 27 children with Reye syndrome to 140 children who had had similar viral illnesses but didn't develop Reye. Both groups were asked which medications they had received during the illness. The data revealed something striking. The numbers. 26 of the 27 Reye syndrome cases had taken aspirin. 53 of the 140 controls had. Odds ratio 42.7. Children who took aspirin during a viral illness were roughly 42 times more likely to develop Reye syndrome than children who didn't. The FDA responded by requiring warning labels on aspirin and recommending acetaminophen for children with viral illness. Pediatric Reye syndrome cases dropped from 5555 in 1980 to fewer than 36 per year by the late 1980s. A case control study, fast and cheap, eliminated a deadly childhood illness. Why odds ratio and not relative risk? Because relative risk requires knowing incidence rates in the exposed and unexposed populations, and a case control study starts with people who already have disease. Cases were not sampled from the general population, so you calculate the odds ratio instead. Numerator, ratio of exposed to unexposed in the case group. Denominator, ratio of exposed to unexposed in the control group. For Reye, that's 26 over 1 divided by 53 over 87, which equals 42.7. Same idea as relative risk, different math because of the design. A more recent case control study. Northeast Brazil, 2015. An outbreak of microcephaly, where babies are born with abnormally small heads, emerged in newborns. Researchers identified 91 cases and 173 matched newborn controls. They tested 3 hypotheses simultaneously: maternal Zika infection, exposure to a new larvicide, and the recently introduced TDAP vaccine. The Tdap odds ratio was 0.6. Larvicide was 1.0. Zika was 189.5. Zika infection wasn't just associated with microcephaly. It was overwhelmingly the cause. The case control design did something powerful here. By the time researchers had results, 2 competing rumors were circulating: that the new larvicide was the cause, and that the Tdap vaccine was the cause. Both rumors were false. The case control data showed it cleanly. TDAP had an odds ratio of 0.6, meaning it was, if anything, slightly protective. Larvicide had an odds ratio of 1.0, meaning no effect. Zika had 189.5, meaning a near certain causal link. One well-designed study, 3 hypotheses tested simultaneously, definitive answer. The distinction that trips up most students. Relative risk is a ratio of probabilities. Odds ratio is a ratio of odds. When the disease is rare, less than about 10% of the population, the odds ratio closely approximates the relative risk, and people use the terms interchangeably. Reye syndrome occurs in fewer than 0.1% of children who take aspirin, so the odds ratio of 42.7 is essentially equivalent to a relative risk of 42.7. For common diseases, the 2 numbers can diverge significantly, and the right thing to say is that the odds of disease are higher under exposure. Subtle but exam relevant. Quick textbook recap before we go off book. Cohort studies start with healthy people, follow forward in time, and produce relative risks. Case control studies start with cases, look backward, and produce odds ratios. Hill on smoking, the Reye syndrome aspirin study, and the Zika microcephaly case control are the classic examples. Odds ratio approximates relative risk when the disease is rare. With that as background, 4 updates have changed observational epidemiology since 2021. Quick update. Schneider went to print in 2021. Observational epidemiology has shifted in 4 meaningful ways. None overturned the textbook. All matter for how modern papers should be read. First update. Target trial emulation is now the dominant analytic framework for observational research. The idea, championed by Miguel Hernan at Harvard, define the randomized trial you wish you could run, then approximate it as closely as possible from observational data. This forces researchers to specify the eligibility, exposure, follow-up, and analysis as if they were running a real trial. The result: dramatically reduced bias compared to traditional cohort analyses. By 2024, target trial emulation appears in nearly every major epidemiology journal as the default approach to causal questions in observational data. Second update: the FDA now formally accepts real-world evidence, which means data from electronic health records, claims, registries, and other routine care sources as part of regulatory submissions. The 21st Century Cures Act of 2016 set this in motion. The FDA finalized its core real-world evidence guidance in August 2023, with companion data source guidances published through 2024. Real-world evidence is being used for label expansions, post-market safety, and rare disease approvals where traditional trials are impractical. Not a replacement for the randomized controlled trial, but a meaningful new supplement. Third update: Mendelian randomization uses genetic variants associated with an exposure as instrumental variables, treating nature's random assortment of genes at conception as a kind of randomized assignment. Because genes are fixed at conception, they are not subject to the usual confounders that plague observational studies. The technique has firmly established LDL cholesterol as causal in cardiovascular disease, replicating the effect that statin trials show. It has also established alcohol consumption as causal in upper aerodigestive cancers, particularly via the ALDH2 variant in East Asian populations. The STROBE MR reporting guideline, published in the BMJ in 2021, anchors how the field is now reported. Fourth update: machine learning is now meaningfully integrated into observational causal inference, especially in academic epidemiology. Targeted maximum likelihood, estimation TMLE, and double debiased machine learning let researchers adjust for high-dimensional confounders far better than traditional regression could. A 2024 European Journal of Epidemiology review by Naimi and colleagues called these methods the state of the art for ML-augmented causal inference, while noting that uptake outside methods heavy research groups is still uneven. The headline: when you have lots of variables and complex relationships, machine learning can give you cleaner causal estimates than regression alone, while still respecting the underlying study design. Final recap of Chapter 5. Cohort studies start with healthy people, follow forward, and produce relative risks. Case control studies start with cases, look backward, and produce odds ratios. Smoking and lung cancer, aspirin and Reye syndrome, Zika and microcephaly are the classic examples that defined modern epidemiology. Target trial emulation, real-world evidence, Mendelian randomization, and machine learning have all become standard tools since 2021. Coming up in Chapter 6, where this whole methodology can go wrong: bias, confounding, the limits of epidemiology. Subscribe so you don't miss it. See you in Chapter 6.